Hi, welcome to Abington News and Views. I'm Paul Mamelo, and today we have with us Congressman Joe Sestak. Congressman Sestak represents the 7th Congressional District, which is largely in Delaware County, but also encompasses part of Montgomery and parts of Chester, I believe.
That's correct.
Congressman Sestak, welcome to Abington News and Views, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
First of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about your background. I know you were a 3-star admiral for 31 years, and I was wondering if you might share with us one of your favorite stories from your time serving in the Navy.
Sure. Actually, my large enjoyment out there was not really just being at sea, it was being with a team. If anybody doesn't think the youth of America aren't great, they just haven't served with them in a template of responsibility and accountability, and I loved it. I got to lead men and women into a war. I got to serve President Clinton as director of defense policy in the White House. But as far as a story, yeah. When I had commanded my very first ship in the mid-'80s, it was called the Samuel B. Roberts. Our motto was no higher honor, because the first ship that was named after had sunk in World War II. My father had fought alongside of it. And there was a young man there who died during it, and they got him off the ship where he later died. And the motto was that the captain penned that day in World War II is, there's no higher honor than to serve with a man such as that. I served with many men such as that on that ship prior to finally and rightfully integrating women. But when we pulled into Oman in one Persian Gulf deployment, we had a reception, and we created an oasis. And 3 small ducklings we purchased. We called them Samuel, Booker, and Robert. Samuel B. Roberts.
Okay. And
after the reception was over, the crew kept the ducks aboard. In fact, they kept them in after steering in the deep sink, built them a little duck house. And every day for the 6 or so months we were gone, they'd check on them every hour in the sound and security watch. And we'd take them to our parties or to our picnics or whatever. And every week we'd send a recording home about them to the children, our children, to let them know about it. And it was something. And at the end I didn't know what to do because we couldn't bring back to the United States because of the importation laws. And so we rented a limousine. And the officers got into their dress whites, you know, like you saw Tom Hanks in, and in white gloves and high collars and swords, and carried them down the gangplank and placed them in the limousine so the children, as we videotaped it, would see that we took them on off to an orphanage. And there with other children we watched as they took now these more growing ducks out as their pets. And I've always remembered that because there we were, warriors at sea. But we always remembered about our families at home who we were working for. And it's a small story, but I was taken by how much the crew became galvanized by it because it was a reminder to their families of a human touch at all times.
Wow, that's a great story, and I appreciate the fact that it relates to family and relates to the people that you served with. So as a commander, how do you feel that kind of experience will help you as a senator, and how does it help you as a congressman now?
Well, I found that there's great similarities between being a good military leader and a good public servant as a politician. I prefer the term public servants. Too many people are politicians, rather do a deal rather than focused on what's right as a public servant. But when I had command of my aircraft carrier battle group, you needed a command philosophy, the ideas by which you were going to lead them into battle. Well, in politics, you need a good ideas. This is the platform on which I'm running. But you also need to have good organizations, processes, good staffs to execute that. And that's very similar, I find, whether it's a campaign as I'm now in for the U.S. Senate or whether it's down in Washington, D.C. But above all else, if you wanted people to trust you, you needed to make sure they understood what your core beliefs were and that they could actually believe in you, that you wouldn't switch, whether it's for another, keep your job from, or whether it's to win an election. And to my mind, that more than anything is what was necessary in the Navy, is if you invested in your sailors, they took care of the mission, as long as they trusted you. And I feel that's the same way as a public servant in being one who serves their citizens who have elected you.
So basically what guides your decision-making process and what did when you were with the Pentagon and with the Navy is the same as what you do in terms of making decisions in Congress?
Without a question.
As a public servant?
Without a question. I mean, obviously, I learned in the militaries make you safe, but they do not make you strong. What makes us strong are the right health, education, economic securities, and how we go about that are policies that I believe in, and as I run, I talk about them. But the reason a public servant is successful, I believe, like a good military leader, is we're both dealers of hope. But hope's not a strategy. You have to execute policies, but people must trust you to do it. And I think that's the missing element in Washington, D.C. People have lost trust in those whom they've elected because they're willing to switch even a party in order to keep their job, or they're willing to switch to their position because it's a tough vote. When you go into war, your troops have to trust you that you're going to stay the course, irregardless of the consequences to oneself. And I believe the same thing down in Washington, D.C. That trust is the endearing element, I think, to success for this nation, at war or here at home, in the right policies to be brought about for the working family.
Well, I think the loss of trust, though, is something that's been going on for a long time. President Obama and a lot of the Democrats that came into office recently ran on a platform of change and to try and bring that trust back. Do you think they've been successful? Do you feel comfortable with what they've done?
No, I think Massachusetts spoke well about it. They were basically saying, pox on both your houses down there, Republican and Democrat. We voted for a change, but it wasn't just a change in policy, it was a change in politics. My party started getting off track when it thought it could, by political calculation, make a deal with Arlen Specter, where he wanted to leave the Republican Party because he couldn't win, after giving 4 out of every 5 votes for the devastating economic and tax policies of George Bush. He wanted to come over here to try to win. And my Democratic Party made a deal, and with euphoria thought they had a 60th vote, but where did it get them? It ended up with Ben Nelson, almost through extortion, saying, you've got my vote if I can take my goodie in the health care bill back to my state of Nebraska. My take on it is that we haven't changed politics. This president truly does believe, as he said during the campaign, believe in principle and politics will follow, but he needs allies, titans in the Senate, because that's what needs reform, not America, to where people say, here's what I believe. And if elected, they're willing to work hard down there, but actually are going to say politics is secondary. It's the principle for which I ran, to help people. And I think this president needs stronger allies, or else we aren't going to change Washington. It's been a generation too long with the present senator, Senator Specter, where that kind of deal-making was accepted. Americans don't want that anymore because there's no margin for error, not with China and India moving forward. We've got to do the right things with conviction.
Well, I definitely want to get into some of the specifics. I'd like talk to you in more detail about the health care bill and some of the other things, but we have to take a short break now, so we will be right back. Nothing is more beautiful than sunlight filtering through a beautifully colored and beveled work of art. Like having your own rainbow, choosing SGO Designer Glass to add to your windows allows you to take your ideas to wonderful places. Designed and constructed in our Springhouse studio, SGO uses a unique overlay process to bond color, bevels, and lead to glass, providing privacy while bringing warmth and beauty into your home. Call 215-646-5077 to set up an appointment in our studio or at your home.